Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And welcome once again, everybody, to the Propreneur Podcast. Excited to have you here for another exciting episode where we are helping give you the best practices possible inside of your business to help you grow and expand and to be a better leader. And I just want to say a huge shout out and thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the podcast. We've seen the numbers continually rise of our subscribers and our downloads every single month. And we just so appreciate you for not only listening, but sharing it with your friends and colleagues. And today we're going to bring you another amazing episode that's going to, I believe, help actually put money into your pocket, which, you know, as a business owner, it's all about how continually bringing money into the business. You cannot grow your business without bringing money. And I believe this is about found money. And so today we are going to talk to our special guest, Eric Romingquet from TXConverter, which I'm excited to talk about because I always love it when we have systems or softwares or processes that not only can help you run your business better, but ultimately can bring more money into your practice. So thank you so much for being here, Eric.
Thank you, Dino. Appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to talk with you about this. But before we get into this, as we always do, we want to kind of dive into your story a little bit more and see where this, we were talking a little bit off camera of your transition that's been going on inside of your business. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, actually, you know, obviously with all the challenges going on with COVID and everything that it has been giving to all these business owners, specifically orthodontists in our cases, which is mostly 90% of our clients. You know, in the fourth quarter, I was talking with a client who just, you know, was frustrated having personnel issues and just said, came out and just said, Eric, I just wish you could do our follow-up. And a light bulb went on in our head or in my head, because that's something that I did in a previous career. You know, in the automotive world where we set up, you know, BDCs, business development centers. And so I took that same concept and started it in our business here to help our clients with regards to their follow-up now. So that's what we do now as far as my team will help. We will actually do the follow-up for the practice for all of their pending exams that they obviously weren't able to start on the same day that are older than, say, 31 days.
Well, one of the things that we talked about before was your history, right? Like, I appreciate the fact that you come from a different industry and brought that intelligence, that education, if you will, from another industry, and we're able to implement that into the industry. So for those that don't know that history, let's talk a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, basically, I spent out of the Air Force. I went right into the car business, and I spent 25 plus years in the car business. Started off in sales and worked my way to general manager and vice president and ultimately managing partner. And I was with dealership groups, so I ran big dealership groups. So sales is, you know, definitely in my blood, and it's what I've done for many, many years, the retail process. And I realized after retiring from the automotive world, I started a consulting company, and that's how I started a 6-month consignment agreement, a consulting agreement with an orthodontist, and that led me to actually running the day-to-day operations for the next 8 years. So that was my introduction from automotive, running businesses, consulting, and then right into the orthodontic world.
You know, it's funny is that if I were to, you know, go to a used car dealership or a car dealership and say, hey, yeah, these guys would probably be good in the ortho world, a lot of orthodontists would be like, what? They have nothing to do with it. And of course,
exactly.
Of course, when you bring up sales, you know, everyone comes up with it. Well, I don't want to be a used car salesman, or I want to sound like a push car salesman.
Yes.
And I often, though, tell doctors all the time, like, when you're looking for a TC, find someone with sales background, with understanding what sales, or at least has a desire to learn sales, because it's the sales position. And you don't have to become that, you know, cheesy dude with the, you know, low shirt, open shirt with the chains and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
The image we have in our head of that guy.
Right.
You don't have to become that.
No.
You just have to be good at this is how I put it. I actually talked about this last night on one of my blueprint calls. As I said, your job is to help people not have the pain of regret. And if you get that in your head, then, and you understand that that's what the mission is, and the value add that you have is helping people not have the pain and regret, then that whole, sleazy car salesman image goes out of your head, because now you're actually helping people, you're serving them. And I'm sure you found that in your many years of doing what you do, it's a service when you get to sell.
Oh, absolutely. It is. And it's our jobs to, like you said, provide the opportunities that they have at the practice or whatever business you're in.
Yeah.
It's our jobs to show them what we have to offer.
Well, with all your many years of experience and also running the practice, what do you feel has been the biggest kind of pushback or hurdle when it comes to finding people who are really good about that sales process as your treatment coordinator?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that I come across all the time from doctors is they don't understand the sales end of it. I mean, if you have an orthodontic practice, in all accounts, that's a retail operation. It really is.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and you have to run it as such. And you have to run that business as a retail operation, and that's where they drop the ball. They don't. We were just talking about. You just mentioned the TC being a sales professional. Well, if you're a sales professional, they need and require training, and they don't provide
Yes.
that, right? And so, if that is how you're going to generate your income, you have to provide the training, the coaching, many of the things that you provide. They need that.
It's very funny. I actually don't always think about how much of a mind shift that is for the owners of the practice to think this has to be like in the sales world. Let's just go back to cars and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but it's not a one-time learn how to sell situation, right? You guys are constantly training and role playing and rehearsing and trying to figure out the best ways to sell, especially with the shift of the industry. I believe when we were talking before, you had talked about going from the in-person to online,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. We were talking about going from, where people had to come down to the dealership to do the test drive before they can buy versus, having the implementation of an internet department,
Yep.
where they would just pick up the phone and call and get all the information before they would come down. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges that I see, that I know we have sales training opportunities in the ortho world, right? You have different consultants who have their courses and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they're typically taught by people who aren't salespeople as well, right?
Mhm.
They're people who were good at processes and presenting cases when it comes to being a TC, but it's typically a one-time shot deal. Like they're like, okay, we went to that course.
Yes.
Well, but and I think the false narrative that happens, and again, you saw this obviously in your 8 years, there becomes this idea that we're a little spoiled, right? People walk into the orthodontic office wanting braces.
Hmm.
You go to a car dealership, you can have 10 different car dealerships in your town, and that person can shop around all day long. And yes, there are people who shop for braces. I totally get that. But for the most part, they're walking into your office. If you've got them to be able to make an appointment or do a virtual appointment, they're coming to you wanting the thing that you are selling. And it's not like you have different varieties and, different models of cars that you're going to try to convince them to go through. Your only job then is to not screw up the sale.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. They're coming
So
to you for a reason.
exactly. And I think that's where we get a little spoiled in this industry, is there's going to be a certain closing ratio just for the mere fact that you're in business, right? And they want what you have.
Yes.
So when you have doctors who are like, yeah, we're closing at like 60%. Yeah, that's because you're not doing anything. Like just
Yeah.
imagine if you put a little gasoline on that fire.
Exactly. Then you get to 75% and plus. So yeah, absolutely. They tend to, they just, all they know is what they know. So what
Right.
they see without any outside training or consultations or anything like that, they figure that's just it.
All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges then that you have witnessed as being running a practice and also in your business now, of getting TCs on board with this sales process, with this idea. What are some of the biggest pushbacks and challenges that you see?
Well, a lot of times I don't think it's from the TCs as much as it's from the doctor, because
Oh, interesting.
the doctor's not understanding it, and unless they get it, then the TC is not going to really be focused on it. So I was talking to a client the other day, and he just hasn't been good. They're very successful practice, but they're just not good at same day starts. And I asked him, I said, why is that? I said, why don't you do more same day starts? And he thought about it, and he goes, I guess I never really just focused on it. I said, well, that's what we should do, is focus on it. But I said, once you set the bar and say, this is what I want to focus on, then your TC is probably going to follow suit. But it
100%.
begins, with the leaders. So that's the biggest challenge that I get. And doctors don't understand the benefit of same day starts. And especially now where, you have more and more practices doing virtual consultations. So, and in my opinion, and I think you feel the same way, Dino, is that if a practice is not doing that, they're really going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Because people with their schedules, they want that opportunity for a virtual consultation. And so they really have to start doing that. But to get back to the subject there, that if you have somebody offering a virtual consultation and you're not, somebody's going to go there just for convenience. Yes. And if they do their job right, you're never going to get that opportunity again. Yep. That practice is going to get it if they do their job right. So that's where the biggest challenge, I think, is the mindset of the doctor.
I think that's so smart and so spot on, right? And I know I'm going to be sensitive to the doctors for a moment, because the moment that doctor says, hey, you guys, we really should put more focus on same day starts, I know there's guys who are listening to this and gals who are listening to this who are thinking, man, my clinic's going to give me so much pushback because we don't have time in the schedule, or, the TC might be on board because they're fine with that, but they don't want to get the clinic or the schedulees upset with her because now she's throwing something new into the mix. And the second part of what you said, I think, is crucial, is that these doctors need to understand that once they change their mindset around that and they just say, no, this is what we're doing, I promise you, a way will figure itself out. The way to make it happen will work. And when the team sees the benefit of it as well, it's funny, I was talking to a doctor recently who was talking about all the things they've been able to do because of COVID, right? Like that their team's more willing to do, and that they can put these policies in and people are just willing to do it. It's like, yeah, because everyone has to. There's no other alternative. And if you make they make it to be that there's no other alternative in your practice, then you'll figure it out. John Graham at Ormco, I think it was Ormco, or maybe it was Ortho5 this last year. I remember him saying, and I thought it was brilliant, he was giving his speech and he said, not offering same day starts is just rude. Yeah. And it's so true. It's just true. Like being willing to, it's also rude to your pocketbook, right? As a business owner, to know that that's the way to grow it. So whether it be virtual, whether it be in person, to not offer those same day starts is killer. You mentioned something too that made me think of this. I don't know. Maybe we're going to go into some uncharted territory, and there might be some people who might not like this. And I don't even know how you feel about this. So I'm shooting in the dark here. Coming from a car, the sales background in the car dealerships, what are your thoughts around commission-based TCs?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I was just about to tell you, I'm a firm believer in the statement of show me how one is paid and I'll show you how one performs.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah. So absolutely. That's what I did in my practice. I gave them productive pay plans. So they were paid based on productivity. Obviously they had their base or what have you, but they had a bonus program that was based on productivity. And that completely turned it around from, resistance to saying, okay, so if we do this and we hit these numbers, I get paid this. Now they're saying, well, let me see how we can make that work.
That's right.
So
it's a weird.
That's my feel.
It totally changes the mindset, right? It's like,
absolutely.
For me, it's the open-ended paycheck aspect.
Yes.
Right. Like when people grasp that concept of, there is no number in that little space on your check unless you put it in there. And that means it's whatever you want to put in there. If you want to work harder, if you want to close more cases, Like, you're going to be in charge of your check. You don't ever need a raise again. For docs out there who who get it, they realize I never have to have that can I have a raise conversation again in that situation, because you're focused on, there is no end to your, there's no cap.
Yeah, because their focus now is the same as yours and get more. The only caveat to that is, before we can even ask for that same day start or push for getting, our productivity higher, we have to earn the right to ask for their business. If we earn the right, then absolutely we should be asking everybody.
Well, and here's what happens, I believe, is that the moment the TC gets that, and that not only does she have to open it a paycheck, but in order to make sure that she's set up to sell as much as possible, and that the potential client is primed and ready, that now she's going to have a deeper conversation with the marketing department, with the director of first impressions, to say, hey, these are the type of people that I know I can close faster and better. This is what I need you to ask on that first phone call so that they're prepped and ready to go. This is the objection I want you to overcome, and preempt that objection before they even get in my office. Like you said, they earn it, and they start thinking differently than just, well, we haven't had any exams today, so I have nobody to close. But that's okay, because I'm getting my hourly pay.
Yes.
It makes a huge difference. So let's talk about then, because I'm sure somebody's in their car right now screaming, going, okay, how'd you set it up? What was your process? Like, what was your scale, your pay scale, and all that stuff that you did with them?
Well, I had a couple of different benchmarks that they had to hit. For example, we had conversion, percentage. Then we had exams, number of exams that we had. And just what else? Conversion, number of exams, and then same day starts. And then I did that on a rolling 90-day average, so that, every once in a while you're going to have a bad month. That's okay.
Sure.
So that's why I took it on a 90-day rolling average. So as far as the same day starts go. So those are the three main ones. But then I also shared a bonus program with the people in the back, like you said, that they would be complaining, oh, we don't have enough time to schedule and all this and that. Once I spread the wealth that way, then the people in the back are like, hey, put them in, schedule them. We'll just make it happen. We'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. And the whole team was pushing, in the same direction. And life was good, at the practice.
I think it was, I might be wrong in this, but I think I'm correct. Dr. Rob Sheffield, when he was implementing his same day start program as we were coaching together, he did something like, it was a $50 incentive for every same day start that would go into a pot, right? And at the end of the week or the month, everybody would split whatever's in the pot. So at first, the back office, the assistants were given some pushback, right? Be like, oh, we don't have time for scheduling that. And when they started seeing that pot getting full, all of a sudden they would go to the TC and be like, hey, do we have anybody starting today? Hey, are they going to start? Are we doing them? And they would be willing to stay after. All those people that had to leave right at 5, right?
Exactly.
All of a sudden it's like, well, I could stay a couple minutes later. And also suddenly that bonding that normally would take an hour and 15 minutes, all of a sudden can be done in a half an hour. It's crazy. Like, the way that the time would shrink.
And then you talk a lot about this is the culture too. That works wonders for the culture, because now the back and front, they're working as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, let's then go into a part of the business that I think is lacking, and I feel like you've created a solution or a possible solution for people, which is, there's this weird thing that happens in the orthodontic space where I'll ask people, I'll say, so how many pending patients do you have? How many people that are that came in, got the exam, and they didn't start on the same day, and you've kind of lost track of them? I know you've had your follow-up process where you've sent a text and a call and an email, but after 2 weeks, it's kind of, usually that's about the number, is 2 to 3 weeks, it's fallen off, right? They haven't actually, they send an email a month or whatever to say, hey, are you still thinking about treatment? And everyone will say to me, oh, no, we don't have that many. We don't have that many. But then when you dig into it and you're like, to me, even 20 is many, right? When you say I don't have that many. You have 20, 30, 40. I have had offices, matter of fact, this week I was talking to an office where they went and they looked and they had over 100 people that are just sitting there that no one's really followed up with after the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks. And I was like, man, how many of those do you need to actually pursue, which as you and I were talked about off camera, is that I'm a huge firm believer in pursuing until they give me a yes or a no.
Mm-hmm.
But how many does it take for you to see like that's worth gold in your practice? I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And that's why I started txconverter.com, is that it is a software program that if you just put the exams in there, it'll track your exams so you can see exactly how many you have, what's their dollar value, and what's their aging. And then it allows you to schedule a follow-up. So if somebody says, well, call me next summer or what have you, you're going to forget about that person, but they can schedule that for next summer and then it will pop up on their follow-up deal. But to get back to that I'll give you a prime example. I was just talking with the client the other day, and we wanted to do an analysis. She wanted to say, Eric, I think I'm ready for you guys to start doing follow-up because they just started virtual consultations, so they're a little bit more busy. And I said, good. I said, your TC should focus on same-day starts and your exams, your physical exams and your virtual consultations. Everybody after 31 days that you haven't been able to convert, let my team handle that. But we took it a step further because she's a numbers person, and we took a look. She's been a client for a while. We took a look at her report, and we ran a report because our P&L, we tracked their potential income from their pending exams, and then we track everybody that we found out that we lost them for whatever reason, moved out of the area, chose another doctor, etc. So we went back to no response. We looked at that category where they just didn't respond back. And I forget the actual number of exams, but the dollar value stuck out in my mind. It was $467,000 worth of exams that came through physically that left but they just stopped following up because there was no response. $467,000. So once we looked at that report, she was like, yes, there. Okay, when do we start? For the follow-up. Right. So that's the right response. Amazing. It's amazing. But doctors don't see that. Sometimes they don't know to even look at it. And that's what could be a game changer. Follow-up.
And let's just say out of that potential $450,000, we're only able to capture 20% of that. Let's just say 20%. You're only that's 20%. That's 80 grand. That's back in your practice. That's what, at least one new employee. That's a mortgage payment over the next 12 months. Like that is so much. And this is where, and I know, look, I'm saying this emphatically, and I know I'm getting all excited about this because I think I'm passionate about. I think that there's such a lost part of revenue inside of the business that most companies would not let just go, right?
Yes.
But we get busy. We don't have all the proper training of how to run a business. We're juggling so many balls in the air right now and trying to deal with what's right in front of us. I get it. I totally understand. I don't want any owner to think I don't have empathy for that. That's why you have to have a system and a protocol. That's why you have to get this out of your hands. And whether you're using TXConverter, you just need something that helps know that part of your practice and your business is being taken care of.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a prime example, Dino, is that we're doing follow-up in May for a client, and we're doing all this follow-up. And in June, we scheduled a bunch of starts. In June, we did, I want to say 8-10 starts for them from the follow-up efforts that we got. But check this out. 2 of the people, the exams were accidentally put on our list to follow up with.
Oh, no way.
But we followed up with them, and they were from 2018 and both started.
Wow.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the doctor's like, Eric, how'd you get them? I said, they were on your list. And they said, that was by mistake. I was like, hey, well, you got 2 starts out of it.
I'll take that mistake all day long.
All day long.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how TXConverter actually works. So I'm a doctor. I see these, this patient, it goes into my system, and it's an automated system that will follow up with them, or does it give me reminders as the
No, it gives
TC
you
to do it?
reminders. Yeah. So the
Okay.
TC, basically you log in, and what TXConverter is going to do, the first thing it's going to give you a dashboard that shows you exactly how much potential income that you have by number of
Ooh, I like that.
exams, dollar value, and aging. Then on the right, it's going to show the doctor or TC or the business manager everybody that's scheduled for follow-up. So if you have, for example, $500,000 in pending exams, you should have a ton of follow-up scheduled. And if
Sure.
you don't, there's a problem. So it tells you that right on the first page. The second thing it does is it's a presentation tool. Some people use it, some people don't. But it's an active follow-up system that you can schedule. And then it will remind you every day that you log into it, who to follow up with, why, you have all your follow-up notes and everything like that. So everybody can just log in there and see that. And then I have coaching, and then we have our follow-up program where now our team will do follow-up. Because let's face it, our TCs now are so busy with everything that's going on. But even before that, we were forcing them to wear multiple hats anyway. We were having to do that. And then just on a regular day-to-day basis, they're answering the phones, they were getting called to the back, they were doing all kinds of other stuff. So therefore, what would get put on the back burner in most cases is the follow-up.
Yep.
Right. So it's like a hamster wheel, right? A hamster on a wheel. And so that's where we come in, and we will actually do the follow-up for them. We want them to focus on same-day starts and everybody under 30 days. And if they can do that, and now they're virtual consultations. And if they can do that, they can be more productive. We'll chase the people that are older than 30 days for them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I didn't know that aspect of it, because I literally wrote down as you were talking the quotes, "I'm too busy, I don't have time." And knowing that that's what's going to be my next questions, is that's exactly what TCs, I hear it all the time. Who do we delegate to doing that? Matter of fact, we were talking about follow-up last night on my coaching call, my group coaching call. And one of the team members from Australia had said, so who do we delegate this to? Because the TC doesn't have any time. Do we give that to somebody at the front desk? Like, and everyone has that problem. So here you're solving that problem too, where they can offload it. They can be have a representative from your company be a representative for their company.
Exactly.
To get those people started.
And my team members are those that have every single one thus far, and I purposely do this, has previous dental experience, whether they were in the back as an RDA or working up front or whatever the case may be. So they understand.
They can speak the language.
Absolutely.
That is great. I love it. All right. So what are some of the biggest, when it comes to you talking to people about this process? To me, it sounds like a no-brainer, but obviously there's always somebody who has an objection or concern or whatever. What's some of the pushback that you get about this?
The number one is, somebody's going to be calling for me. So what I do is we'll do a call like this, and I'll introduce my team member to the doctor or the business manager, what have you, so they can meet them, see what they're about. It's almost like, they're going to interview them,
Right.
And they're going to call on, so they know who's calling on their behalf. And when we call, we make sure that the person knows that we're calling from Dr. Dino's practice, and we're supporting, Angie or TC, who you saw. We're just doing follow-up. We know everybody's busy right now. We want to touch base with you, and they're more than welcome for they love the phone call. They love the fact that the practice is actually taking the time to reach out to them, these pending exams, previous exams.
I think that's a really good point. It's the point that I try to make a lot of. People are busy. They don't think about you after they got in their car on the way home. I mean, especially when they're going back to work, right? They've got their stuff to deal with. We are so, in some ways, egotistical about the way that we think. And I say we in the sense of all of us. When I talk to somebody too, I think, yeah, they're probably thinking about me tonight, right? No, they're not. They're going on with their life. If somebody came in, got an exam from you, got on a virtual call with you, they got off the call, they got back in their car, and yeah, they might have to think about, oh yeah, I got to decide if I want to do that or not, or I got to talk to my spouse. But life happens to all of us. Things get in the way. So to really think about the idea around how grateful people are. Yes, every once in a while you'll have the person who's annoyed by you or whatever, but they're just annoyed in life. I mean, just get over it. For the most part, I would venture to guess that out of all of the pendings, let's just say we have, 20 different pending patients sitting there, you might find one who's annoyed and 19 who are grateful that you have a system and a process in place where they don't have to think about you, and
Yes.
you're doing the thinking for them and just reminding them.
Hmm.
I just think it's so important. Let me ask you this. You mentioned the person that they get to get on a phone call with. So if I have someone from your team doing the follow up, is it a dedicated person that's dedicated to my team,
Absolutely.
like my
Yes.
person?
Dedicated to
Oh,
your
that's
practice.
smart.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll get nobody else. You'll always have that one person calling your pending exams.
Oh, that's great because now you really can create them as a team member, right? An
Yes.
extension of the team.
Hmm.
It's great. I love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so any other pushback that you get?
Not much. That's the main one, because you have to understand when we're talking, we look at that number. I want to take a look at that number of, number one, how many pending exams do you have, their dollar value, and their aging, and then maybe if they do know this, where we can look at how many pending exams they have that that they lost because of no response, and that's usually a high number.
Right.
Even if they don't know the exact number, their TC would say, "Oh yeah, that's a few." Um, right there, they know that they need help. So,
Is what is it a because there's a fee to have the system, the software, and then there's
yes,
an additional fee to have somebody do the follow up?
yes, uh-huh,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
That's what I'm sure some doctors are asking in their car, going, okay, well, how much of that is going to eat my profits? And I want people to think you had zero profit before this was happening. So,
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Let's put it this way: they would make a ton of money, even if we got one patient,
yes,
from our follow-up efforts, and the fee that they pay. It doesn't even compare.
exactly that. And I just want people to think this is the thing that I like. We're walking over the dollars to get to the dimes, right? So often
Yeah.
where
Yes.
it's, you're worried about the fee because I know someone's in their car going like, oh yeah, well, how much that's going to cost me?
Yeah.
You're asking how much it's going to cost you based upon money you never were going to get,
Hmm.
right? Because you didn't
Yes.
have that system in place. And look, if anything, hopefully this show just inspires people to put an actual process in place, whether
Yes.
they hire a TX converter or not. This is just a resource, an opportunity for you to see. And the point of this show is to remind you that there is gold and then there are hills, right? The hills of follow up. And if you
Hmm.
have a process and a system and a protocol in place, then you will actually make more money. And it's found money.
Yes. Absolutely, it is.
Well, man, yeah, I love it. I love that you're doing this. I love that you're doing this as a service. I love that you saw a need here and are fulfilling it in a very powerful way. And I love that you're doing it from the mindset of sales,
Yeah.
of allowing people not to have that pain of regret. It's so important.
Yeah, I'm doing it from the mindset of sales, Dino, and I'm also doing it from the mindset of running a practice.
Yeah,
So that to me sets us apart, makes us
totally.
different. So I get it. I get
Totally.
what these doctors are going through.
Yep. Totally makes sense. Well, awesome. Well, you've been through the drill before, but we've gotten to the point in our show where we actually do our 6 rapid fire questions to help doctors get to know a little bit more about you. Are you ready to play?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so what do you feel is the most expensive thing private practice owners are missing in their practice?
I think probably the fact that they're not holding the physicians accountable for or inspecting what they expect,
Oh, I
is
like that.
probably the biggest thing they have to do or should do. And by not doing it, they're losing so much money. It's that, when we talked about a little bit before about the performance based pay, scale, commissions or what have you, whatever you want to call it. It should be, they should have that. And then they should be inspecting what they expect. So if you want your TC to hit certain levels, if they're not, you have to look at why aren't they doing it? Or to drill it down to be something more simple, you have somebody answering your phones. When's the last time, if they are recording the phone calls, when's the last time you actually listened to it and critiqued it with your team member, so inspecting
Totally.
what you expect is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I just want to add to that because I think it's so vital to remember. I know many people they have written systems, right? I go into
Mhm.
office all the time where it's like, oh yeah, we've got our manual on that, and we've got a
Yeah.
manual on that. Systems are only as good as how often you review them.
Hmm.
And as a business owner, one of the hard things you have to do is you have to continually hold yourself accountable for holding other people accountable.
Yes.
You can't just be saying, oh, well, there's a system over there, that person's in charge. Look, it's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on this conversation probably for the last week now, on and off with different people around. A lot of doctors want their team members to care about their business as much as they do. And I'll get that call. How do I get them really to care, really to, and, to grasp the vision and really care as much as I do? And I always say, well, they're not. Like, they won't. That's impossible. It's like me asking you to love my child as much as I do.
Yeah.
This is your baby. You can only expect them at a certain level. Look, you're going to have people in your office who are there just to get a paycheck, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you are helping them get involved in the process and telling them you care about them wanting to get that paycheck. So I absolutely agree. You have to inspect it over and over and over again, and that's your responsibility. So I love that answer, and we've never had that answer before. I think it's great. So number 2, what is a book that you believe every private practice owner should be reading?
Who Moved My Cheese is probably one of the best books I've ever read. It's so simple, but if doctors should read it, the team members should read it. It really gives a good perspective on life.
It really does. It's a classic, right? I actually should probably reread it. I probably haven't read it in probably 20 years. Like I should read that book.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, I read that book the same time I read The War of Art, which is more for creatives, but both of those, probably shouldn't say this, but I call them my toilet books, right?
Okay.
Books are, it's like, all right, I got a moment here. Let's pull that open. All right. Speaking of books, in my book, The Practice RX, I focus on the team culture and team performance as the foundation for business growth. What do you see in all of your conversations that you've had, and also in your experience of being of running a practice, what do you see as the biggest challenge that private practice owners are facing with their teams and office culture?
Well, just not establishing a true culture. And it goes back to when we were talking about how it goes back to pay plans again, when we were talking about, if you put a bonus so that the people in the back, the RDAs, the back team is working on the same page with the front team, that creates culture, and that's what I think most practices lack. They really do. There's a separation there. It seems, as you build practices, everybody's gotten rid of the glass window that you would open and close for patients. Now we're probably replacing it with plexiglass, but we need to get rid of that divider between the back staff and the front staff.
It's true. It's that
culture. I
talk about it as the Sharks and the Jets, right? Get rid of that Sharks and Jets culture, that West Side Story thing going on. All right. How can listeners reach out to you? I actually want to ask a follow-up question around this in a moment, but how can listeners reach out to you?
They can go to my landing page website. It's txconverter.com/followup. I think that'll be the best. They can go there. They can learn more. They can watch this video on how the process works. And I think that's the best way.
My follow-up is that I failed to do this at the beginning. I love knowing, understanding more about names. So tell people your last name. What's the origins of that?
My last name is Romingquet, first name Eric. And I am Filipino and Maori from. I was born and raised in San Francisco. My mom's from New Zealand. My dad's from the Philippines.
And the Romingquet is your dad's side of it. That's the Filipino side?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, I've never heard that. It's like almost sounds French.
Yes. So I'm sure, I guess you can say I'm a mutt. I'm sure there's some French in there.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Well, that's awesome. Well, one of my best friends is from New Zealand. I love that culture, and that's awesome. That's very cool. All right. So the best advice that you've received in life or in business?
I think the best advice I received is when a mentor told me that desire and passion isn't taught. You either have it or you don't. And if you have it, regardless of one's background, education, even experience, if you have it and they don't, chances are they don't, then you already have an advantage over them.
100%.
Yeah.
I tell doctors I would rather hire on passion and enthusiasm over skill. Absolutely. Because you can teach the skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Desire and passion, you can't.
That's right. the best resource or tool that every private practice owner should be using right now to grow your practice?
Well, obviously, txconverter.com.
Good job. Thank you. It's surprising how many people don't do that. And I'm like, well, what about your thing?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. Just TXConverter software for following up and making sure that you are, man, it's just going to pay for itself over and over and over again. You mentioned something about Steph Curry, and I like this analogy.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, again, I was talking to a client the other day, and he's like, Eric, well, the coaching is great and everything, but is there an end, date that we can shoot for? And I said, well, not really, because, even the best shooter in basketball, Steph Curry, he has a shooting coach.
That's right.
Michael Jordan had a shooting coach, and will continue to have coaches throughout, or a life coach or whatever the case may be. So, no, I think it's continuous education and continuous training. And if you provide that to your team, you'll continue to get results. So that's why I look at it.
I've never thought of the Steph Curry thing, probably because I'm not a huge basketball fan, but that's totally right on. I use Tiger Woods has 3 coaches.
Yeah.
3. And none of them, by the way, have ever won a PGA Tour.
Yeah.
None of them. And you need to have that outside resource. In the book, The Road Less Stupid, Keith Cunningham talks about, he says, you cannot smell your own breath. You cannot see your own golf swing. So you have to have that outside source to tell you.
Yeah,
that's so true.
Absolutely.
Well, man, that's, again, just another amazing resource of information. Eric, thank you for being a guest. Thank you for sharing this information with us. Another opportunity for people to learn the best practices. I hope, and I really feel that people were inspired by the idea of, I'm going to go and find that money. By the way, I think that one of my goals for all my clients, and really everybody I talk to, is that I want them to be at December 31st, 2020 and be up by 10, 15, 20%.
Yeah.
Even though there was the COVID stop, right?
Sure.
And I believe that it's things like this. It's tools like this. It's focusing on that follow-up, focusing on mining those diamonds that are sitting there waiting for you to follow up with them. That is going to be the differentiator between those practices that are able to accomplish that goal and the practices that aren't.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Dino. I appreciate it. And thank you for what you do actually in the industry. I really appreciate that. As you know, I follow you and I've been at your classes. So
I'm having fun. So hopefully everyone's having fun with me because I'm having a good time. Thank you so much again, everybody, for listening to the Propreneur Podcast and for sharing it with your friends and your colleagues and letting them know that this is the source to get the best practices possible. I'm so thrilled that we get to bring you great minds that have ideas and methods that you can actually be more successful inside of your business. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Remember that our goal here is always to help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable in all areas of your life. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dino.
Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.